welcome to this free live session brought to you by Talent Sprint. So as you know, for today's session, obviously we're going to be focusing on IBPS CLERK prelims, right? With your exam scheduled end of this month. Basically what we're going to do is, obviously we're going to look at previous year's question papers, right? 2015, and there could be a mix of questions, you have first sitting, second sitting. So what I've done is I've collated certain questions where I feel you will be able to learn some concepts out of those questions, right? So if you have taken the exam earlier and this is not your first time, you are aware of the pattern, right? So when it comes to IBPS CLERK prelims, the English section, 30 questions, 30 marks, whereas quant and reasoning has 35 questions, all within an hour's time is what you need to complete it, right? So the question types in the English language is pretty much the same. At least previous years, the question types were jumble sentence, there was close passage, there was reading comprehension, there was spot the error, and then there was another variation to spot the error. Basically, I call that attention to detail question type, right? Where you'll have to identify whether it's a spelling error or it's an inappropriate word in the context. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll look at a couple of questions. Given the time that we have, we may not be able to go through the entire question. We look at some challenging questions, right? We look at jumble sentence, we look at close passage. Definitely we look at spot the error because that question is challenging. Evergreen question that's always challenging. And we'll also look at the attention to detail question, right? I mean, I call it that, but you know what I'm talking about. Now, when it comes to reading comprehension, because, usually it's a story-based passage. Like I always say, attempt the vocabulary questions first, right? So synonyms, antonyms, and it's going to be pretty easy. It's not going to be very tough in the clerk exam, the difficulty level. So you may be able to, get 4 or 5 marks there itself without reading the passage. If you think, I'm going to waste time reading the passage. But the best part about reading comprehension in clerk exam is it's again a story. Easy to read, easy to follow. The questions are also not very complicated, right? So if you understand the passage, you'll be able to easily answer the questions. So usually it's 5 questions. If you look at it, there are 5 questions in spot the error. There are 5 questions. The close passage is usually about 5 blanks, right? But it's always good to be prepared for changes, just like how we had, sudden changes in SBI PO also. It's good for us to be prepared. But the best thing is the strategy and the approach is the same for the question type. It's just that when you're practicing, you can practice also with, more number of questions, whether it's spot the error or close passage. So let me share the screen. Let's get started. Spot the error. Read the question. The fierce lion and the sly fox became friend and decided to hunt together. Right? So this one, as soon as you read it, you know the error is in part 2 because we're referring to 2 subjects, fierce lion and sly. So we're talking about 2 nouns here. So obviously the noun number has to change, right? So here we have only friend, you change that to friends. So the error is in part 2. So this is an error pertaining to noun numbers, right? You just pay attention to the context and we need a plural noun number and not a singular noun number here. So that's where the error is. Let's move on to the next one. Clever disciple who knew the special verse. So obviously, as soon as you read the question again, you know that the error is in part 3 where I don't need the past tense verb here, right? The clever disciple who knew the special verse wanted to show. I need the infinitive to show, right? Of course, when I have the infinitive, it always takes up the base verb and not the third verb. Verb 1 and not verb 3. Verb 3 is what is here. However, there's another thing as well. In the sentence, yes, we've established the fact that part 3 is where the error is. You also don't need another word in the sentence. Can somebody quickly identify that? Which is unnecessary in the context. Can you tell me which is that word? He is a pronoun, which is correct. It's substituting the clever disciple. So that's correct. The word that is unnecessary in the context is how, which is in part 3 again. I don't need this how. Without this how also, the sentence is absolutely fine. The clever disciple who knew the special verse wanted to show he was better than the others. It still makes sense. Either ways, The error is in part 3. Yeah, are you following? So most of you came back and said he, but he is the pronoun which is substituting the clever disciple. So that has to be there. The clever disciple, who as a relative pronoun, again is a match, right, relating to the clever disciple who knew the special verse, wanted to show he was better than the others. So that's fine. How is also not needed there. Error is in part 3. Let's move on. As days went away, the jackal became fat and healthy because the lion was a good hunter and always left a generous share for his friends. Let's look at part 4. Left a generous share for his friends. Who left a generous share? The lion. A generous share, noun. Generous is the adjective, right? Kind of describing what sort of a share, a generous share. For who? His friends. Seems fine for me. Why should it be leave? See, if you look at the general tense in the sentence, Sindhu, right? What's the general tense in the sentence? How do I identify the general tense in the sentence? I look at all my action words, right? All my verbs. So, became, that's a clue, right? The general tense is past tense. So, why do I need to change left to leaves? It's fine as it is, right? The error, however, is in part 1, right? Those of you who said part 1, you're correct. Not as days went away. The context is telling me as days passed by, right? So, as the days progressed, the jackal became fat and healthy. The reason, because as a conjunction is the right one, giving us the reason, and then the reason is explained, right? So, here all you need to do is change went away to went by. As days went by, meaning went by has the same meaning as the days passed by, right? As the days progressed. So that's why your error is. The error is in part 1 and not in part 4, friends. You need to change went away to went by. Yes, went away is wrong. See, when I say somebody went away, I'm just talking about that somebody just left. That's a completely different meaning altogether. In this context, it's the wrong phrase. I don't need went away. It's an incorrect phrase in the context, right? Because the meaning that I need is I'm referring to, or I need a phrase that expresses saying, hey, as the days progressed, as the days passed by. I'm looking at the jackal and it's been a week, it's been 10 days, and then I see the jackal becoming fat. How? Because the lion is leaving a lot of food for the jackal, right? Where sometimes animals and things kind of take up or are expressed as humans, right? So it's called personification. Let's move on to the next one. The merchant called out to the villagers in his high voice, and it all came eagerly to see what he had with him. Most of you are saying part 1, some of you are saying part 2, some of you are saying part 3. So basically I have all the parts. Let's go part by part, okay? Part 1, the merchant called out. So called out meaning if I call out to someone, I'm trying to get their attention, right? So called out here meaning trying to get someone's attention. I called out to who? The villagers. So the merchant called out to the villagers, okay, in his high voice, all right. And then it says it. It's an incorrect pronoun here. I need a pronoun to replace the villagers because they are the ones who came eagerly to see what the merchant had with him because he's the one who's called out to them. So which means this has to change to, and they all came eagerly to see what he had with him, right? In the questions that we've looked at, a lot of pronoun errors, right? Error is in part 3. You change it to they. Simple. Moving on. All the hunters stopped in their tracks as the deer they saw was extremely beautiful. Do you think there's any error? Okay, some of you are saying part 3. So let's go part by part again. All the hunters, so we're talking about more than one hunter, right? Which means plural subject, stopped in their tracks. So there is right, making reference to each of the hunter's tracks, right? So when you say somebody stopped in their tracks means what are you trying to say? To stop in one's tracks means to halt. They halted, right? They suddenly stopped moving. That's what it means. To suddenly stop moving. So this is an expression. In fact, the right expression is stop dead in your tracks. That's the common expression. Stop dead in your tracks means to suddenly stop moving or doing something. So imagine you're walking on the road and it's really dark and dingy, it's really late, and then suddenly you hear a loud scream. So obviously you're going to stop dead in your tracks because you're wondering where that scream is coming from, right? And then as the deer they saw. So why did they do that? So as here again brings in the meaning of, for the reason, because. Right? That's the meaning it brings in as a conjunction. So that's also correct. Tracks, meaning in each of the hunter's tracks. I need a plural noun number, so that's correct as it is. I don't have to make any changes in part 2. Yeah? Stop dead in your tracks. Yes. So as the deer they saw, so they again the right pronoun, substituting the hunters, was, right verb, because we're talking about a singular subject deer, I need a singular verb was extremely beautiful. So beautiful is the adjective, extremely is the adverb, right? Kind of intensifying or telling me to what extent the deer was beautiful. So everything seems fine. Yes? So no error. So those of you who came back and said option 1, 2, 3, 4, there is no error. This question is error free. Yeah, it will be 5. So those of you who said 5, correct. So let's move on to our next question type. So far we've looked at spot the errors, right? So the next one is jumble sentences, right? Now jumble sentences again, I'm not going to say, because it's clerk exam, the difficulty level will be, less or anything of that sort. The idea is for us to always understand that there will definitely be a logical, coherent connect between each of those sentences. All we need to do is identify what is that connect, right? It'll be easy to identify the topic sentence. Afterwards, you might get stuck. So the mantra here is, one or two of you were asking, right? What's a quick trick in jumble sentences to identify, those, there'll be 2 sentences where, you just can't separate them at all. They have to be linked because of a very, very obvious connect. Right, now let's look at our topic sentence. Also is a descriptive clue word, can't be my topic sentence. In the splendid palace of the Emerald City, okay, seems like a topic sentence. So Ozma's big guards. Who's Ozma? He has to be introduced, right? Or he or she, I don't know who it is. Around Ozma's throne, again, there's no introduction. Who is this Ozma? I don't know. These, obviously, these 2 beasts, meaning there has to be a sentence preceding what are those 2 beasts, right? Which means obviously my topic sentence is B. Now in my topic sentence, I have an introduction. What is the introduction? It says, in the splendid palace of the Emerald City, which is in the center of the land of Oz, is a great throne room. So always pay attention to the indefinite article, right? One of the differences when it comes to definite article and indefinite article is, when you're introducing something, you will always use the indefinite article. When you're making reference to the same thing, then you will use the definite article, right? This is one of the very, very basic differences between and the, right? Introduces, and then when you want to refer to the same thing, you use the. Refer to the same person or thing that has been introduced. Then you will use the. I know B is introducing who? Princess Ozma and a great throne room. And also another way to look at it is, we'll take Ashish's sequence. I'm just going to write Ashish's sequence here. B, D, C, E, A. And Ashish, we'll see if this is the right sequence, right? A lot of you, there is some others. Okay, I'm going to say this is Ashish's. Any other different sequence? Prakash. Let's take Prakash's sequence. Prakash says B, D, E, A, C. That's Prakash's sequence. So I'm sure some of you would have taken Ashish's sequence. Some of you would have taken Prakash's sequence. We'll see which sequence is correct. Is there any other different sequence? I see another sequence. B, A, E, C, D. Akhil. Okay, let's take Akhil's also. B, A, E, C, D. So we're looking at Akhil, Ashish and Prakash. Right? We've established that B is the topic sentence. So Akhil, Ashish, Prakash. So far you're good. No problem. So, and another tip for you to definitely freeze on, okay, this has to be the topic sentence is, why? Because if you look at A, all of the majority of the sentences will have the main essence or the main keyword of the passage highlighted, which means it will be repeated. If you look at A, again I have side of the throne. right? Except for C, again D has talking about throne. E also makes reference to the throne, the great throne room, right? So the highlight of the passage is repeated throughout, right? Which means I can fix on B as the topic sentence. That's the one that is introducing the key word around which the whole passage is revolving. Then we have Princess Ozma. Now, let's look at Akil. Akil says the next sequence is A. Also crouched on either side of the throne are two enormous beasts known as blah blah blah. Okay. And then he says next is E. That's a connect. Let's see if all of you got that connect. Now, didn't I say that after the topic sentence, you identify one sequence where this has to follow this. That is AE. Right? You got this wrong, Ashish. You got this wrong here. Right? This sequence is AE. Again, you also got this wrong, Prakash. Why is that? Let's look at it, right? Because also crouched on either side of the throne are two enormous beasts known as. So the beasts are introduced in A. Hungry tiger, cowardly lion. These two beasts, that's your another clue phrase, which means E has to follow A, right? So only Ashish has that sequence right. E following A. Okay. But, so Ashish and Prakash, I'm sorry, Akil got that sequence right. Right? However, we still don't know if A has to follow B. That is still pending. Okay, that is still pending. I don't know about that. What I know is E has to follow A, pakka. Now, leaving that aside, okay, I'm just going to put here A, E. E has to follow A. That is my connecting thing, I know that. What is left? Left is D and then C, right? So let's look at C. So Ozma's big guards are more ornamental. I want you to pay attention to this another descriptive clue word. So usually in a sequence, in a paragraph, when you say so can mean different meanings, right? But in the context, it's almost giving you like a closure, like a conclusion. I'm just asking you to pay attention to that. Let's look at D. Around Ozma's throne on such occasions. What is that on such occasions? What occasions are they referring to? The only occasion that is referred to is where? Can somebody quickly point that out? The only occasion that is made reference to is in B. The topic sentence. Read the sentence. It says, where Princess Ozma sits on a throne of glistering emeralds and listens to all the troubles of her people. Now, on such occasions makes reference to that. Right? So, on the occasion where Princess Ozma is listening to all the troubles of her people, who is grouped? People are grouped, all the important dignitaries of Oz. Yeah? Are you following? So, sorry Akil, though you got the topic sentence right and you got the connecting sentences right, you didn't get the whole sequence right. Anybody has B, D? I saw somebody. Dipankar. B, D, right? And then A, E, and then you have C. That is the sequence. So, all of you guys, Prakash, out. Ashish, out. So, let's put down the right sequence quickly. B, topic sentence. D, because I have the phrase on such occasions, making reference to the occasions when Princess Ozma is listening to all the troubles of her people. And that's what happens on such occasions. All these important dignitaries are assembled there. B, D. Also, so again we are referring to the throne. What's happening around the throne? Also crouched on either side. B, D, A, E. And the remaining is C. That's it. I don't know who else got the sequence. So those of you who got sequence, perfect. Are you following? Pretty easy. It has a very, very logical connect to this. If you follow closely and pay attention, you will easily get the sequence unraveled. It shouldn't be a problem at all. Right? 5 out of 5, you can easily score. Right? You just need to pay attention. So, sometimes, earlier we used to have pretty easy passages where it will be firstly, second, then next. All these sequence clue words will be there. But not all the passages will have sequence clue words. You'll have to Look at other clues. Okay, descriptive keywords also. So, identify keywords. See if there are repetitions in the passage. Understand, pay attention to, such phrases on such occasions. What occasions are they referring to? Right? Right? Let me quickly share some tips. One is identify key phrases that stand out. These two. What are these two beasts? Which means there has to be a preceding sentence talking about what those two beasts are. There has to be some sentence having introduced those beasts, right? So make logical connections. Focus on phrases, ask questions. That's one strategy. Two, pay attention to descriptive words, connecting words, because, also, and, or, right? And understand that those sentences need to come in appropriate intervals. In 1 hour, right, for your prelims, if 30 questions are there, I need you to, when you're practicing, you need to practice in half the time. Which means 30 questions in English section, you should be able to finish in 15 minutes. That's all the time you have. Are you following? So, for jumble sentence, as and when, depending on how many times you've practiced these type of questions, you should be able to finish it in less than 3 minutes. You shouldn't take more time than that. Yeah? So, let's move on. So, once you get the sequence right, obviously, you'll get your full 5 marks, right? Which of the following should be the first sentence? First sentence is obviously B. 2, which of the following should be the fifth sentence? We said was C. Third sentence is A. Fourth sentence is E. And second sentence was D, right? You get the sequence right? You get all your full 5 marks. Close passage. 5 blanks, right? Let's quickly read, right? One of the ways I always keep saying when it comes to close passages to quickly skim through the passage, try and understand, what's the general tense? Is it in past tense, throughout? So you can pick appropriate words accordingly, right? Let's read. The 2 fish named Multiwit and Centiwit lived in a lake with a frog named Uniwit. One evening, as they were sitting by the lake, 2 fishermen dashed by, planning to come fishing at the lake. And the next morning, after dash, the fishermen talked. The frog advised that they should leave the lake. Okay. Multiwit laughed and said, "Don't be frightened, Uniwit. Many wits say dash will happen tomorrow." Frog inclined to his instincts and dashed the lake that night. The next morning, fishermen caught Multiwit and Centiwit in their nets, and so it is better to pay heed. Okay? Alright. So let's look at our first blank. So we understand that the general tense in the context is obviously in the past tense, right? So the 2 fish named Multiwit and Centiwit lived in a lake with a frog named Uniwit. One evening, as they were sitting by the lake, 2 fishermen dashed by. So I have walking, swimming, went, travel, past. 2 fish named Multiwit and Centiwit lived in a lake with a frog named Uniwit. One evening, as they were sitting by the lake, the 2 fishermen dashed by, planning to come fishing at the lake in the next morning. Alright. So, if I use walking by, right, the subsequent verb has to change. 2 fishermen walking by planned to come. ED form. It's not in the ED form. Swimming by, unrelated word, right? It's illogical. Went by, on the other hand. Yes. Why not passed by? Right? Why should it be went by and not passed by? Quickly. So, past, some of us get confused, right? The appropriate word, if you ask me, would be passed by. So, question. So, past is not the right form. In fact, past is a noun. It could be a noun, it could be an adjective, it could be an adverb, or even a preposition, but never a verb. In the context, I definitely need a action word, verb. Right? So, went by, which has the same meaning. We saw in one of our finding error questions, right? Has the same meaning as passed by. So, just so you guys don't get confused, right? When I have to use past, you could say, she's always refused to talk about her past. I'm going to quickly write down some sentences. She's always refused to talk about her past, right? In this sentence, this is acting like a noun. About her what? About her past. Or sometimes even it will even act as an adverb. He waved as he walked past. Right? Here, past is acting like an adverb. Or sometimes it can even act like a preposition. They walked, I'm just giving random examples, okay? They walked past the memorial in silence. Here, it's acting like a preposition. Yeah? So this is a completely different word altogether. This cannot be a verb. And in the context, I need a verb. The right one is went by. Yeah? Planning to come fishing at the lake in the next. After dash, the fisherman talk. After listening, if I have to use listening, I need a preposition. What is it? Listening to. Right? After listening to is not there. Can't use it. After hearing the fisherman talk, seems more appropriate. Eavesdropping, not right. Afterwards doesn't make sense. After knowing the fisherman talk, again illogical. Obviously the answer is hearing, right? Yeah, most of you got that right. So after hearing the fisherman talk, the frog advised that they should leave the lake. So obviously in the third blank, I can't say should leave the lake just. Should leave the lake closely, illogical. Should leave the lake lately, doesn't make sense. Should leave the lake directly, doesn't make sense. Should leave the lake immediately. Yeah? Lavanya, it is went. It is went by. That's the answer. I'm saying 5 is not the right answer because it's not a verb. Okay? Like I can say passed by, example, a black limousine passed by when she looked out the window. Right? Went by, same meaning. So Multivit laughed and said, hey, don't be frightened, Univit. Many say dash will happen tomorrow. Nothing will happen tomorrow. This will happen tomorrow. Which will happen tomorrow? Nobody will happen tomorrow. Harm will happen tomorrow. I already know that 4 and 5 doesn't make sense at all. Right? Which in this again, not making sense. Nothing is more appropriate. And the last one, for frog inclined to his instincts and dashed the lake that night. So we know the general tense in the context is past tense, right? Away, inappropriate word. Hidden, disappeared, illogical. Vanished, I need to change the entire structure of the sentence. The obvious answer is left, right? So frog inclined to, and left the lake that night. That's it. That makes more sense. So pretty easy one, right? Except for maybe the first one, if in case you were confused, I just wanted to clarify that, past is a completely different word and it's not a verb and it's not the right word in the context, right? So we have our answers. Let's move on to our last and final question type, which is, like I keep saying, this is the one where, it's more to do with attention to detail. If you are observant enough, you'll be able to quickly identify the answers. So let's look at this. So obviously the direction here, it says in this question a sentence with 4 words in bold type is given. One of these 4 words given in bold may be either wrongly spelled, so there's a spelling mistake, or it's inappropriate. Inappropriate meaning it's not the right word choice. It's giving me a completely different meaning. Right? Let's look at the vast amount of information available today has created a more knowledgeable public. Now, looking at the context, obviously I know the context is giving me a positive meaning, right? What are my clue words? We're talking about information. We're talking about, it's created, knowledgeable. These are all positive words. So obviously, what is this negative word doing here in the context? It's an inappropriate word, right? It's not waste amount. All I need to do is, I know the error is in 1 where it's an wrong choice of word, and I need the right one which gives the meaning of something that is exceeding, right? They're referring to information here. So obviously we want something that is very great in size or extent or quantity, right? Yes, correct. So you change waste to vast amount of information available today has created a more knowledgeable public. So there are only two forms to this question type, right? One is an incorrect word choice. Let's look at another one. To deal with the grievances of taxpayers, the department will set up locale committees in every region. Just the way I pronounced it, you should be able to identify where the error is. For this one, where's the error? I'll wait to receive the answer. Yeah, easy one, right? Spelling error, right? So, locale means a place, right? Especially with reference to a particular event. So, that's not the meaning that the context needs here, right? Locale is a place, like I could say the locale of a crime scene, just to give you an example. Here, the word that I need is local. Set up local committees in every region. That's your clue phrase, right? So, local, on the other hand, is relating to a city or town or district rather than a larger area. So, obviously, it's in 2. So, basically, what we've done is we gone ahead and looked at, what sort of questions we can possibly expect in the prelims. Yeah. So, the ideal way to practice for prelims is to practice with time, right? So, if there's 30 questions for English, when you're practicing, take 30 questions. Make sure you have all these 5 question types. Reading comprehension with a 500 to 600 word count, 10 questions with 3 or 4 questions on vocabulary, synonyms, antonyms. Add in 5 spot the error, 5 close passage blank questions, 1 jumble sentence, and attention to detail questions, spellings and inappropriate word choice. Take 30 questions, keep practicing them. Time yourself. See in how much time you're able to finish how many questions, right? And how many of them you got right. So that's your feedback. So based on that, you can go ahead and do that. So enjoy your rest of the evening. I will see you guys with another interesting topic in the next session. Feel free to post what you would like for me to take. I will go ahead and include that in the session. Yeah. Take care, guys.
Bharti Enterprise founder and chairman Mr. Sunil Mittal has been elected as GSMA chairman for the 2-year period starting from January 2017 through December 2018. The current GSMA chairman, John Frederick Bacchus, will step down from the board in the end of 2016 after holding this position for the past 3 years. Sunil Mittal, who is the first Indian to be elected as the chairman, will oversee the strategic direction of this organization.
Or strategies that you need to know to crack phrase substitution. Okay, so phrase substitution, all of you know, is just a variation to finding errors. So how we're going to do this is we will look at what are those concepts or strategies that you need to know, and then we look at questions aligned to those strategies. So if there's one strategy, we look at a question which aligns itself to that strategy, right? And we'll go about in that manner.